Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. Later in the show, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. We do the show each and every single Monday. Usually comes out Monday morning. This is the latest that's ever came out for the years that we've been doing this show. I apologize for that, but let's get right into the show, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot of news to talk about. The AFC East is probably the most interesting division going in to 2020, especially after this offseason. It's going to be very interesting to see where all of the teams lie in terms of the improvements they make. So this is the most exciting offseason I can remember in a very long time, because this team showed so much promise. So let's get right into the news you need to know about. This first news story is an interesting one. Dolphins Vince Beagle. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins Vince Beagle discussing extension. The Dolphins have told linebacker Vince Beagle that they would like to re-sign him, according to Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald. The two sides have already discussed the possibility of a multi-year deal, so it sounds like a fresh contract could come his way before he hits restricted free agency in March. Vince Beagle said, quote, "We'll get something done." The Dolphins acquired Beagle in August when they shipped linebacker Kiko Alonso to the Saints. Beagle notched 59 tackles, 2.5 sacks, and an interception in 15 games for Miami, while making 10 starts. In his two previous pro seasons with the Saints, the 26-year-old had never started a game. The Dolphins are armed with upwards of $100 million in cap space. The Dolphins should have plenty of cash available to re-up Beagle and address their many needs on both sides of the ball. Beagle will turn 27 in July, so a new pact could lock him down through his prime years. So I'm not a big fan of Vince Beagle in terms of, I think a lot of people, I like Vince Beagle, but I think we could find better options at the position he plays. I think Andrew Van Ginkel showed so much promise in the last game of the season. I think he's more versatile. I think he's a better athlete than Vince Beagle. He's got the same type of motor. They're both very relentless guys. But there were a lot of times where Vince Beagle, since they play outside linebacker, Van Ginkel, they both play outside linebacker, but there were times where Van Ginkel was in a situation where he had to, make a play on a receiver in the flat or running back, and he gets matched up sometimes whatever the coverage dictates. That happens in a 3-4 front. He has such great versatility where he can do a lot of those things. He can do a lot of everything. And I'm talking about Van Ginkel right now. And he showed that in the New England game. He was a big reason why our defense played well enough to win a game. It didn't play great, but it played well enough to win the game. And he had a good game. And that was the first game we really saw from him what he potentially could be. And I look for him to make a jump in year 2. He's had his first season. It was injury-riddled. He didn't get a lot of playing time. But he played well against a division rival on the road. And I think we're going to get a lot of good things from him in the future. So, not to mention that I do want to make major improvements, if I was the GM of the team, to the outside linebacker positions. I don't think we're big enough at that position. I think we're too small. I don't think any of the players that we have right now are great at any one area, and they're not physical enough. So that is a huge, huge problem for this defense, because basically we have no one who can set the edge at all in the running game. And I'm talking about below a tackle up and put them on their, but push them in the backfield, really be a force to be reckoned with in the run game. There's no one on this team, like I said, who's big enough, physical enough, strong enough to really do that. We saw a little bit of that from Van Ginkel in his last game. He actually did push. There was a couple times where he set the edge really nicely. But we haven't had that on a consistent basis. I don't think Vince Beagle can do that. So if I'm the Dolphins, if I was the GM, I wouldn't be in a rush to sign him. He's got a great motor, Vince Beagle. He's in terms of, you can tell when he plays the game, like, he never gives up. Like, all of his sacks were because of his relentlessness. I think the only sack where he won quickly was against the Jets when we sacked him out of field goal range. And we should have won that game, but whatever. That was the only time I really saw him, like, beat his man. And I think he came off free. I can't even remember. I would have to go back and look at that play. But that's the only play I can remember where he really, won really fast from the line of scrimmage and made the play. He's just he's not that much of a difference maker at all. He doesn't do anything really well. He's a hard, he plays hard all the time. But I don't know. I just don't love anything about Vince Beagle. I don't think he's what we're looking for the position he plays. If anything, he can be a really good rotational player on third downs. He is athletic enough to do some of those things in terms of, you can drop him back in coverage. You can disguise a blitz where he, drops back in the middle of the field and can make a play. You can match him up on tight ends. He's a versatile guy, but I just don't think he's the player that we need for this defense to be very successful. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Dolphins do. It sounds like they want to re-sign him. I just don't think he's a starter in the National Football League, in my opinion, in terms of just being able to do it all 3 downs. He has a role that he can fit well, but I don't think he's someone that can be a dominant force in this defense. Unless he could. I haven't seen enough of that, in my opinion. I mean, the pass rush was abysmal all year, and he was a part of that. And the run defense was awful as well. And he was a part of that too. I get that he was the only one making plays on this defense on a consistent basis. And consistent is a very loose word I use. But I just, I don't really see it, in my opinion. So whatever the Dolphins do, he cannot be the starter going into 2020. I can tell you that right now. This next news story, I don't really know how to feel about it. It kind of makes me upset, to be honest with you. And it doesn't make much sense to me. But the Dolphins have fired offensive coordinator Chad O'Shea. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins have fired offensive coordinator Chad O'Shea, reports Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network. The longtime assistant spent 10 years with the Patriots as the club's wide receiver coach and joined former New England DC Brian Flores in South Beach when Flores became the Fins head coach this year. However, Miami's offense was ranked 27th in the league in 2019, and while an overall lack of talent is mostly to blame for that, Flores was elected to move in a different direction. The Dolphins finished the 2019 season with the worst rushing offense in the NFL and just 25th in overall points scored. The front office is expected to overhaul the personnel in the coming months, and when those new players are in the mix, they'll be led by a new OC. The Dolphins' new look offense will likely include a first-round quarterback and then some. This offseason, the Dolphins will be armed with tons of cap space, plus the number 5 overall pick, as they look to turn things around. It was a challenging year for the Dolphins, but there were bright spots. Quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick kept the club's spirits up during a 5-win season, and they closed out the year with 3 wins in the last 5 games, including dubs over the Eagles and Patriots. In addition to firing O'Shea, the Dolphins have also parted ways with offensive line coach Dave DeGilliel, I can never say his name. That's another move. Okay, let's take this one at a time. This is really bad. I don't know if, this is not good. That's for sure. It's definitely not good. I don't know if it's really bad, but it's not good. Let's start with the offensive line coach. Okay, first of all, he's one of the best in the National Football League. One of the best. I don't understand what happened between those two and the relationship and what really caused Dave to move on. We're talking about the offensive line coach, but that seemed to be more of his decision than the Dolphins, which is unfortunate because he turned one of the worst unit in the National Football League, the worst unit, into one of the better pass blocking offensive lines in the league at the end of the year. There was a drastic improvement from week 1 to week 17 with that offensive line. As a owner of the team, as the head coach of the team, I know that they realized that they had to let someone like him go is a huge blow to the franchise. That it cannot be overstated enough how much he meant and really meant to the future of this team, because this offensive line is in shambles. To have someone like him on staff who can work with nothing and make it something is invaluable. Like, you cannot put a price on that. The Dolphins should have done whatever they could have, and I don't know the entire story. I know that it was it was more on him than it was the Dolphins. He wanted to move on. Maybe he wanted to go with Josh McDaniels wherever he ends up. But that's a big blow, man. That is a big blow. He did one of the best jobs out of anybody on this staff. Probably the best, actually. He did a fantastic job. And that's a big blow, man. That's a big blow. I really don't... I don't know what happened, but that is not a positive thing, especially with, like I said, with where the personnel is with the offensive line. But hopefully, I trust this regime. There's still a lot of really good coaches on this team, and a lot of really good decision makers. But he was one of the best, and it's unfortunate to see him go. Because he was really, really good at his job. So let's get back to Chad O'Shea. So this he was straight up fired. So this is different. And we have a little bit of more nugget on this. This also comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins let go of offensive coordinator Chad O'Shea earlier today, but the organization doesn't doubt his ability to coach receivers. Sources told Pro Football Network that the 47-year-old is viewed as a great wide receivers coach, but people inside the building didn't view him as a good coordinator. The longtime assistant spent 10 years with the Patriots as the club's wide receiver coach and joined former New England. We know. This is very concerning to me. Why the heck did they do this? Number one, he is one of the best developers of talent in the league when it comes to receivers, if not the best. If you look at his track record, it's insane. Look what he did this year with Isaiah Ford, with Preston Williams, and Devontae Parker. The fact that the Dolphins fired him is insane to me. Why would they do this? Look at Mike Gesicki. He coached Gronk from the start of his career to the end of his career. That is literally something that, if you watch, I can't remember what it was, but they were talking about how Chad was a big part of Gronk's red zone growth. And I know Gronk was a physical freak and all this other stuff, but he helped him out a lot. Like, his development track record is insane, dude. Why did they fire him? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. The offense ranked top 10 in passing the last 2 months or the last month of the season. The team got better as the year went on. The receivers, the development that they showed, like I just said, Mike Gesicki is dude, it was, and people are going to be like, well, how do we know it was, Chad O'Shea? Because of what he's done in the past with receivers. Every time the Patriots would take the field on offense the last 10 years, they're like, well, who the heck do they have on offense? That's a playmaker. Chad O'Shea coached a bunch of crap throughout his entire career at New England and made it something. People would come in and out of that offense, and he made them something. He developed Julian Edelman. He worked with Wes Welker. Like I don't understand what the Dolphins were thinking. I don't understand it at all. Chad O'Shea deserved to be the offensive coordinator next season. The running offense was not his fault. It was the personnel. It was god awful. This was an issue last year. It's because of Adam Gase and Mike Tannenbaum that this offense can't run the football. It has nothing to do with Chad O'Shea. That was an issue last year. We couldn't run the ball. Ever since 2016, when the Unicorns left, we haven't been able to run the ball. We've become a significantly less physical team because of that. And that's why Tannehill left. Look what we did in 2016 with that offensive line, with Brandon Albert, Laramie Tunsil, Mike Pouncey, the whole 9 yards, Jermon Bushrod, all of them. What we did in 2016, we ran the football and we had a great play-action game. Look at what Tennessee's doing right now. They run the football and they have a great play-action game. They're in the playoffs. Mike Tannenbaum and Adam Gase ruined that entire team, and that is the reason they're not coaching here anymore. And that's the reason Tannehill isn't here anymore. Okay? And that's the reason we couldn't run the football this year, because it's not built to run the ball. It was built to pass the football. That's what Adam Gase loves to do. That's what he built this offense to do. And that's why we were way better at passing the football with some of the players on this team than years past, even though some of the offensive linemen aren't here anymore. that's just the DNA of this team. I can't explain it, to be honest with you, but that's what this team's been, lacking over the last 3 or 4 years, is being able to run the football. So you guys can blame them for messing this offensive lineup, and, it is where it is now. Like, we're just not physical enough, not strong enough, not talented enough to run the football. Dave got this offensive line good enough to pass block, and I'm not saying, because the offensive line is different than it has been in years past, but they have stripped it down to the point where we have 0 physical players on this offensive line. You guys can thank Adam Gase and Mike Tannenbaum and all the poor decisions they made to where we are now. You can thank them for that. Chad O'Shea shouldn't be blamed for that. It has nothing to do with Chad O'Shea. Look at the offensive game plan at the last game of the year. What is it? So there's literally a quote in there. They didn't think he was a good coordinator. What the heck are they talking about? The design, some of the trick plays that he designed in that game, like the throwback screen, all of that stuff. It was really well designed. The play calling was great. He realized that this team couldn't run the football. On that 3rd and 1, we kept aggressive. We threw to Devontae Parker. Like, all of the game plans throughout the season, there were some bad when we kept trying to run the football, and then that completely changed when we made the adjustments. I felt like it was like halfway through the season, and that's when the offense started to get better, and that's when he started to develop this passing game, and ever since then, it's been pretty dang rock solid. So I don't understand what the Dolphins were thinking. They just fired one of the best coaches they've had in this organization in a long time. I honest to God don't understand it. This is one of the dumbest things they've done in a long time. I don't get it, dude. I really don't. I mean, we put up 35 on the Bengals, which is the Bengals. We put 27 up in New England. We put 35 up on the Eagles. And I think the best thing that he did was develop the talent. And I know that they said he's a better receivers coach than the coordinator, but his coordinating skills were fine. They were good, and it was his first year doing it. And he developed everybody on this roster. You can thank Chad O'Shea for that. And it doesn't make any sense to me. That was a boneheaded, dumb decision that the Dolphins made. The man came in here with a great track record of developing talent. He came here and he did that. He developed Devontae Parker, who looked like a bust. Preston Williams came in as a talented, undrafted rookie. He was developing him in the right direction. Isaiah Ford was nowhere to be found until Chad O'Shea got here, and he became a really good slot receiver. It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me. Why Mike Gesicki completely turned out around his career? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Why the Dolphins would look at that and say, okay, you didn't do a good enough job, we're going to move on. It doesn't make any sense. Which leads us to the next news story, who's his replacement, who does not have, at least development-wise, doesn't have nowhere near the track record Chad had. It's very unfortunate that the Dolphins decided to do that. It's very stupid, and I hope it doesn't ruin things. And there's still talent here, but the sky was the limit with this offense. And I love the way the offense was ran. I liked it a lot. I don't understand what the Dolphins saw there. Maybe he wasn't a great leader, I guess. I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins hired Chan Gailey as their offense coordinator to replace Chad O'Shea. One day after firing Chad O'Shea, the Dolphins are bringing in a familiar face to their offensive coordinator vacancy. The Miami Dolphins will hire Chan Gailey as their new OC. Gailey served in the same capacity with the Dolphins from 2000 to 2001. It's something of a curious move, given that the Dolphins seem to be finding their groove under O'Shea. Although the overall offensive numbers look bleak, the team finished 27th in the NFL in total offense, last in rushing offense, and 25th in scoring in 2019. They did rank in the top 10 in passing offense and top 15 in scoring offense after Ryan Fitzpatrick took over the starting quarterback job in Week 6. They ranked top 10 in passing offense and top 15 in scoring offense. However, as Cameron Wolf of ESPN.com writes, Chad O'Shea's system was frequently described as complex, which makes sense given the amount of time spent in the Patriots organization, and with a number of young players on the roster and a rookie single caller likely coming in, Brian Flores perhaps wanted something a little bit more digestible. Gailey's spread offense could fit the bill. Plus, it's not as though Fitzpatrick is unfamiliar with Gailey's system. Gailey was Fitzpatrick, as we know, with the Bills and the Jets. As a head coach for the Cowboys and Bills, he's just 34-48 as a head coach, including an 0-2 mark at the playoffs. And he has not been successful at every stop, but he obviously has respect to Flores, who will attempt to mold Miami's young offense. This is the dumbest decision. I don't understand what the Dolphins don't like about winning. What do you not like about good things? You just get rid of them all the time. All the dang time. It doesn't make any sense. Just right before things get to hit their prime, you let them go, dude. Every single time, dude. This is so frustrating. Let me read this again, because I don't think people understand what the heck this just actually means. The Dolphins, at week 6 and on, when Ryan Fitzpatrick took over the job against the Redskins, they ranked top 10 in passing offense and top 15 in scoring offense. When was the last time the Dolphins did that? Especially passing offense, dude. I can't even think. Someone has to look that up. It has to be over 10 years. This is insanity. It is insanity. This organization deserves to be punched in the face for what they've done. It doesn't make any sense. It was too complex. What does that even mean, dude? Let Ryan Fitzpatrick sit and teach. That was the whole reason Ryan Fitzpatrick was why the coaching staff wanted him to start is because he understood the offense. So Ryan Fitzpatrick understands the offense. The only one who doesn't is Josh Rosen. So what the heck does that have to... The receivers clearly understood it because they were balling all season after week 6. We had a 1,000-yard receiver. Mike Gesicki had the best year of his career. Isaiah Ford was a monster at the end of the year. So what? None of that. I guess it was too intelligent for them to understand because none of them had career seasons. We were ranked top 10 in offense and passing offense, so execution wasn't an issue. I hate this. I hate this so much that it concerns me. I hope this works out. Obviously. It'd be awesome if the Dolphins somehow... I mean, obviously, he's not going to come back. He'll probably go with Josh McDaniels and, live it up and win a lot of games wherever the heck he goes, for God's sakes. But, again, another valuable member of the coaching staff that should not have been fired. And the fact that we were like, you know what? Let's hire this 67-year-old dinosaur from the 90s and the 2000s because he had so much success as a coach. Let's get him in here with his spread offense. Yeah, let's dumb down this offense so when we go up to New England, Bill Belichick can say, this is let's game plan for this spread offense, for God's sakes. How stupid are the Dolphins, dude? It doesn't make any sense, man. Again, you just can't have nice things if you're a Dolphins fan because it just continues. It's over and over again with this organization, with the dumb decisions that they make. It's like it doesn't make any sense. Like I cannot rationalize this in any way, shape, or form. We've been through the Bill Lazors, we've been through the Zach Taylors, we've been through the Adam Gases, the Mike Shermans with Joe Philbin, in recent years, and they were all terrible, dude. They were all god awful at coaching, at developing, at execution, getting their team ready week in, week out. At least Chad did all of those things really well, and that was the best offensive coordinator we've had by far in the last 10 years. And this organization wants to just catapult that. Obviously running the ball, and it had nothing to do with him, by the way. It was the bullcrap personnel that this organization has assembled and has led to this poor offensive line. And the running backs were awful. Like Myles Gaskin was the best runner of the football. Mark Walton can't keep his hands to himself. And then that's what leads to where we are now, and it's unfortunate that this team, I don't know. Hopefully they know more than I know about Chad O'Shea, because clearly the numbers don't support their decision, and the facts definitely don't support their decision. But we'll see what happens, man. It makes no sense to me, but whatever. Jesus. What else do we have? Oh, yeah. I mean, this news story is, it is what it is. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins cornerback Xavier Howard arrested for domestic violence. Very unfortunate news. Dolphin star Xavier Howard was arrested last night on charges of domestic battery, as Cameron Wolf of ESPN.com reports. The alleged incident involved Howard's fiancée. Barry Jackson, the Miami Herald, obtained a copy of the plea. Who cares? Okay. Let's see here. Needless to say, Howard could be facing a significant suspension and fine from the league, in addition to whatever criminal penalties he may be facing. Domestic violence is an especially sensitive subject in the NFL these days, and if the allegations are true, the Dolphins can expect to be without their top cornerback for a few games next year. Howard signed a 5-year, $76 million extension with Miami back in May following a 2018 campaign that saw him notch a league-leading 7 interceptions en route to his first Pro Bowl nod. He was one of the high-level pieces that the rebuilding Dolphins chose to keep for the long haul, though he played 5 games in 2019 before being placed on IR with a knee injury. In the statement, the Dolphins said they are aware of the situation and gathering information. Okay, so it sucks. Hopefully he didn't do it, or maybe I don't know. I don't know enough about the situation to speak on it like that. But I do know that it sucks. I mean, obviously he deserves to be punished for what he did, if he did do it, and whatever that punishment is, he deserves. And it sucks for the team, obviously, because they're worse off without him. And it's very unfortunate news. Very unfortunate news for the Dolphins as a franchise. But this defense played well enough to beat New England. In New England, they had a lot of signature moments this year. Chad O'Shea, or not, well, he's gone now. But Patrick Graham and Brian Flores did a good job with this defense. Unlike what other people have said about that, I think the defenses ran really nicely, and I think it's specific. The defense is very specific to the team that we play, which is really nice as well, because that means we're actually preparing for deep offenses. Unlike previous coordinators that just ran their scheme, they adjust to what the offenses that we play. I mean, we run different fronts almost every single game. If you look at the front we ran against the Ravens to the front we ran against the Patriots, it's very different. So it's very game plan specific, and I like that a lot. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a blow because of the minds behind the defense are very, very good. Alright, boys, right before we get into the fan Q&A, we're going to do a new segment on the show where we break down free agents each week leading up to free agency, and we're going to do a positional group, specific positional group each week. This week we're going to do quarterbacks, because I feel like this is like a position of, and we'll discuss what I think the Dolphins should do in terms of free agency, but this is something that the Dolphins don't really need to worry about all that much. It'd be interesting if Adam Gase was still the head coach, because I think some of these older quarterbacks might be a Dolphin if that was the case. But I don't think this is a position the Dolphins need to worry about or actively pursue. But we're going to start with it because of that, because I guess it's kind of the least interesting. But so let's start with what I think the Dolphins should do at quarterback in free agency. They shouldn't do anything. They should re-sign Ryan Fitzpatrick, and they should draft a young quarterback in the top 5. That's what they should do. Will they do that? I hope so. I mean, it's very obvious that they should do that. But if they weren't going to do that, this is some of the options that they would have. If they instead of drafting a quarterback, they pursued one on free agency. The most interesting one by far is Dak Prescott. He's the only one on this list where I think to myself, he's a very Drew Brees-like situation. He's young. He's had a really good career. He led the league in passing this season. He led the number 1 offense this season. He's got a playoff win under his belt. He's a winner. He's a very mobile quarterback. He can extend plays. I like Dak Prescott personally a lot. I think he's a very good quarterback. If somehow the Cowboys didn't sign him, I feel like the Dolphins should at least try to pursue him, because how old is Dak Prescott? He's like 24, right? Let me see here. Let me just make sure really quick. Dak is 26 years old. So you're going to get Dak for 10 years of his prime, and it's going to be really nice. I mean, Dak is a very efficient quarterback. He's accurate with the football. I think, people could say he's kind of inconsistent. He's a little bit inconsistent with his downfield accuracy, I will say that. He's not like the greatest deep ball thrower I've ever seen in my life. But he's clutch. He's, again, a winner. I like Dak a lot. And again, he led the league in all that stuff. But I like him a lot. So if there was one free agent quarterback that I actually think the Dolphins should look into pursuing, which it won't, but if it became a situation like that, then it should be Dak Prescott. If the Cowboys somehow went full on Tropic Thunder, just being full dumb, and let Dak go, then the Dolphins should pursue that for sure. Dak Prescott's amazing, in my opinion, and he's 26 years old. And he in this offense with these weapons in Miami, and he's also a really physical player. He's strong, durable, all that stuff. He's a great quarterback. I like Dak a lot. So if he became available, the Dolphins 1,000%, yeah, that's a word, percent should go after him. If I had a draft board, I would rank Dak number 1. And really, I wouldn't have anybody else on the list because, to me, no one else is very significant or should be even considered. The next person on the list is Phillip Rivers. Okay, for obvious reasons, he's too old and he's not as good as he used to be. There you go. Jameis Winston, he turns the ball over way too much, and he's one of the most overrated players I've ever seen in my life. I don't know why people keep giving him second chances. He's the first quarterback to throw 30 touchdowns with 30 interceptions. He's a turnover machine. He makes very bad decisions with the football. He cannot lead a team to the playoffs. I don't care what anybody says. You can't lead a team to the playoffs with Jameis Winston. He's had a talented enough roster to do so, and he's ruined it for his franchise and his team. So Jameis Winston is off the list. Drew Brees, too old. He's still good, and he lacks arm talent. I think he's, in terms of being able to push the ball down the field. I think Drew Brees said it the best. He wants to stay where he is, and if he can't stay where he is, then that's it. And he said that, and I understand why he says that, because that to me, that's a perfect situation for him, and to leave that situation, I think, would hurt his career. Tom Brady, too old, and just too old. He's still good. He's still a really good quarterback. He still has the ability to push the ball down the field. He's very accurate, obviously, very smart, and he's still Tom Brady, but he's just too old. Marcus Mariota can't push the ball down the field. Not a good pocket passer. Not consistent, and can't stay healthy. Ryan Tannehill, we don't even have to speak about that. And Eli Manning, obviously, definitely not. And Case Keenum, 1,000% not. If I had to rank Ryan Fitzpatrick on this list, he would be number 2, in my opinion, behind Dak Prescott. The only reason Dak's ahead of him is because of age. And, so that would be the only reason I would have Dak ahead of him. But in terms of quarterbacks, free agency, all the Dolphins need to do, if Dak Prescott does become a free agent, and there's for some reason in league sources or whatever, which this is never going to happen, he wants to leave Dallas, then the Dolphins 1,000, which that would be so stupid if he did that, but that should be, the Dolphins' number 1 priority is to get Dak Prescott, because I like Dak a lot, but other than that, they should re-sign Ryan Fitzpatrick, not re-sign him, because it is a 2-year deal. But they should retain Ryan Fitzpatrick, and hopefully he comes back next season. So, in terms of free agent quarterbacks, there's not a lot to talk about, but there are specific scenarios. I would like to bring this up before we move on to the fan Q&A. If Adam Gase was still the quarterback, if still the head coach making roster decisions, Tom Brady would be if Tom Brady was available and he couldn't go back to New England, and somehow they built an adequate roster for Tom Brady in that span of time, which wouldn't happen if Adam Gase was still making the decisions, then Tom Brady would be I could see Tom or Phillip being the Dolphins quarterback this season, for sure. I could see that, which would be interesting, but I don't know. But in alternate reality, I think that's what would have happened. What would have happened? I'm a perfect English speaker. Let's move on to the fan Q&A, ladies and gentlemen, where we answer fans' questions. This first question comes from, I thought that said Todd, and I was going to get really excited because the name Todd is a special name. But it's Troy. Troy George. Troy asks, do you like what O'Shea did as an offensive coordinator? Should Miami have kept O'Shea? I think so. Are you excited about Gailey? I think Gailey's spread offense suggests Miami is going to pick Herbert. Do you agree? Okay, see, now you're hitting me with a bunch of things that I don't like. I loved the way... Okay, let's start with this. Do you like what Chad O'Shea did as an... Yes, and obviously the rant I had earlier in the episode explains, and what we talked about earlier, explains why I think the Dolphins should have kept him, and why it was a stupid move not to keep him. Should Miami have kept O'Shea? Yes. Are you excited about Chan Gailey? No, I'm not. I'm definitely not excited about Chan Gailey. I think Gailey's spread off suggests Miami's going to pick Herbert. Do you agree? So now let's start with Herbert. I loved the way Herbert played against, who was it in the bowl game? Let me look this up. Look at this up. I can't speak English. Let's see here. I watched the game too, and that's what's hurting me. Bowl game. I apologize, everybody. Yeah, they played in the Rose Bowl against Iowa, right? Was it Iowa? No, it was Wisconsin. That's what it was. Yeah, he carried that team to a victory. He looked the best I've ever seen. That's the one thing I have questioned about him, is his ability to take over a game and be special that way. Because I've seen Tua do it, and I've definitely seen Joe Burrow do it. And that was really the first time I've ever seen him in a big game do that. And I thought it was very impressive. I mean, he's really the sole reason they lost that game, Wisconsin. And I don't mind Justin Herbert. I know a lot of people like his size and strength and his ability to throw with people around him in the pocket. You've heard all of those things from analysts around the league and stuff like that. But I still like Tua better. I like Tua significantly better than Justin Herbert. I think he's just a better pocket passer. I think his accuracy is special. His ability to extend plays is better. And obviously he's not as durable as Justin Herbert, but that's the only thing about Tua is his injury history. But I would like to bring up Deshaun Watson. I love when people bring this up because Deshaun Watson tore his ACL in college. He tore his ACL in high school. He tore his ACL in the NFL. He's had 3 ACL tears in his life, and he's doing just fine. And he's very he's durable. He's very durable actually. I mean, he takes a lot of hits. He gets back up and he keeps playing football. So, I mean, there have been other quarterbacks that have bad injury histories in college that have went on to the NFL and been just fine. So, I don't necessarily think it means the Dolphins shouldn't take him. I mean, Drew Brees is another example. Tears up his shoulder really bad, and then he comes to New Orleans and, does what he does. And so there have been other examples of that where it's worked out. So, again, Justin Herbert would still be third on my list if I had to rank him. But I was impressed by Justin Herbert against Wisconsin. And I did watch that game. I don't know why I thought it was Iowa. It's maybe the same division, all that conference, whatever you call it. This next question comes to Jag Pack. Jag Pack 18 says, thoughts on in-season contract extensions. Parker and Rowe made sense, but not a fan of extending Hearns. Mr. Glass and Grant. Yeah, the Shaquem Grant thing hasn't really worked out that well. And I think Isaiah Ford is that could unless the Dolphins want to keep him as a special teams player, that could possibly lend, and I really hope, again, this is another reason I think Chad should have stayed, is because Isaiah Ford in this offense is really good. And I don't know if he'll be as good in a spread offense, but we'll see. But it is what it is. Yeah, because the emergence of Isaiah Ford, he just was a better Allen Hearns, and which is kind of bad timing for the Dolphins. I don't love the Hearns extension because of the way Ford played at the end of the season. The Jakeem Grant thing has been very 50-50. It's just really his health. And the Parker and Rowe extensions, especially the Eric Rowe extension, really has surprised me in terms of being a great positive for this team. He's been a great. He's basically Patrick Chung in this defense, and he's very versatile, and he covers tight ends extremely well, and he's a great chess piece for this defense. This next question comes from Beef Fan Kimchi. I think that's how we're gonna go with that. He says, "Hey Skaggs, love the channel. Just to throw this question: if Tom Brady becomes a free agent and doesn't retire, what do you think? If he were to come to the Dolphins?" I don't know if I would like that. I think I just want the future to be solid, man. The short term is fine. If I knew that he was gonna win a Super Bowls, of course I would do it. If I knew it was like, okay, we're gonna get a Super Bowl out of this, yeah, I'm gonna sign Tom Brady. But if okay, here's what I'll say: if Tom Brady were to come here to Miami, this is what we would have to do to win a championship. Number one, the trenches have to be figured out because Tom Brady in this behind that offensive line is worse than Ryan Fitzpatrick behind that offensive line, and that's just a straight up fact. I cannot tell me how many times Ryan Fitzpatrick shook someone coming free at him. I mean, he had a tremendous season, so that has to be figured out. If the offensive line was figured out, then we have one of the best offenses in the league, definitely top 3. If the offensive line got figured out, and we had Tom Brady with the people that we had, and especially if we kept Chad O'Shea, dude, this offense would be insane. It would be the best offense if we had one of the best offenses this team has ever had as a franchise. But that didn't happen. None of that happened, and none of that is going to happen. But if that happened, then yes, Tom Brady should, that would be amazing. But that would be the way the Dolphins would have won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady. If they fixed the offensive line, which they could totally do if this scenario came true, they could fix the offensive line. They should have kept Chad O'Shea and put Tom Brady behind center. You have one of the best offenses in franchise history, and the rest is history. And the defensive line has to be fixed. But you can focus all of your attention. If you're going for a ring now, then all of those things would work. You would just have to bolster the offensive line. I would have kept Chad O'Shea. You bolster the defensive line, and you have a bunch of draft picks to do it, and you have a bunch of free agents, cap space to do it as well. So yeah, that's what I would have done if I was going for a ring right now, and that's to me what would have worked what would work if Tom Brady were to become a Dolphin. But I just don't think the current situation fits him, especially with the offensive coordinator. This next question comes from me or my. He says, "Hey Skaggs, love the content, keep it up. Would you be opposed to trading back if Tua goes back to school?" Which we will find out today at some point. If Tua goes back to Alabama, that's not good. Yeah, I guess we would have to trade back at that point. Yeah, or somehow finagle the pick from the Bengals. This next question comes from Mason. Mason asks, "What would you think?" That would suck. No, that would suck. What would this next question comes from Mason. Mason asks, "What would you think about the Dolphins not drafting a quarterback and extremely improving their O-line this offseason to give Rosen an actual chance next season, because I still believe he has a lot of talent." Rosen has a lot of talent, and this offense that's coming in fits him better than the one before, and it's going to be easier for him to process. But, who knows what that situation could become, and all of the moves that the Dolphins made benefits him greatly. But the Dolphins need to improve the O-line regardless. Mason, they just need to improve it. This next question comes from Seymour. He says, "Hey Skaggs, the Dolphins' first round mock draft." This is his first round mock draft. First pick 5, Jordan Love. There's not a chance. If the Dolphins did that, I would cease to exist. Yeah, I would cease to exist. I literally have nothing to cling on in this dimension, in this existence anymore, and I would cease to exist if that happened. There's a edge, AJ Epensia from Iowa. I like him a lot. Jordan Willis, offensive line from Alabama. That would be your last 2 picks are solid. Your first pick. First of all, AJ is a perfect fit in this defense, by the way. But Jordan Love, I think you can wait to the second round to get Jordan Love. But your last 2 picks are really good. My says, I don't know what I'm gonna call you. Okay. He says, "I'm predicting they get 3 trenches of free agency, maybe drafting 1 defensive end. I'm hoping they draft impact players at our first 3. Would you be opposed?" Oh, God. The cornerback or Jerry Jeudy at 5. So, the cornerback from Iowa State, or wide receiver Jerry Jeudy at 5. And And I just watched a video so I can nail his name right. I'm not even joking. I just completely forgot. Anyway, yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that at all. I would be more opposed to the taking up the Ohio State cornerback. Jerry Jeudy, I'm fine with. I think, I don't know. I don't know if I would like either one of them, depending on who's left. But if it's between those two and maybe a tackle, then I'm taking one of those two for sure. But we already have so many receivers. The whole Jerry Jeudy thing would make less sense than taking the Ohio State cornerback. That's for sure. But Jerry's really good, man. He's really good. This next question comes from Daniel. Daniel says, which running back, draft, or free agency would you want the Dolphins to pick up this offseason? Okay, draft, for sure. And I don't even want anything from free agency. But draft, J.K. Dobbins or Jonathan Taylor. Those would be my top two. If we got one of those two, I'd be very, very excited. This next question comes from Richard Rodriguez. He asks, if Tua returns to school and the Dolphins pick a quarterback at 5, who would they pick between Herbert and Love? So if Tua returns, oh man, I would pick Justin Herbert if I was the Dolphins. Big, strong guy, great athlete, great arm. Very, like I said, underratedly. He has an underrated ability to extend plays because he is so strong. He's hard to sack, and he has the athleticism to get outside of the pocket. He's a really good thrower on the run. I just haven't seen enough special out of him to be 100% sold, I would say. But he definitely has potential, and a lot of people actually think he's the best quarterback in this draft, but I disagree with that. But he definitely has the talent to become that, and who knows? And he would be a perfect player to sit behind Ryan Fitzpatrick as well, in my opinion. This next question comes from Douglas. Douglas asks, hey Skaggs, what do you think of the Ohio State running back J.K. Dobbins? I'd love to get him with one of our late first-round picks. What do you think? That would be an absolute steal if the Dolphins got J.K. Dobbins. He had 2,000 yards obviously as a collegiate player this season. He's such a good player, dude. He's so fun to watch. He's so smooth. He's so versatile. He can run the football. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's a game wrecker and a half. If the NFL was in a different era, he would be a top 5 pick. So I love J.K. Dobbins. That should be a priority for if they depending on how well they like him, I would trade a later round pick or a future pick to get him if I had to trade back up to get him. That's how much I like J.K. Dobbins. I think he's McCaffrey. He's definitely, he reminds me a lot of Christian McCaffrey. This next question comes from MC. He says, hey Skaggs, did you expect any more coaching changes due to the new offense being installed with the new OC? Do you expect any more coaching changes? No, I don't. That decision was the dumbest decision. This offense better click. This offense better finish top 10 next season in passing offense. Or I'm going to be disappointed because we did this year with the talent that we had, and I'm expecting this team to be better next season. So this team better finish anywhere from 15 to 10 in passing offense next year, or that was a bad decision. This next question comes from John. He says, what do you think of Temple Center and Matt? You see, John, I don't know. I don't watch a lot of he says I think he could be a good steal in the later rounds. I don't know enough about him. I would have to go watch some of his games and collect more information. But I always do that before the draft. I don't know enough about him. This next question comes from me or mine. He says Jonathan Taylor is one of the guys in He says Jonathan Taylor is the one guy in this entire draft I hope we can get even in the late in the first round. What is your one player besides Tua who you think we simply cannot pass on if he's there? And what position would you hold off on considering the depth of the draft? Depending on where we are, like the defensive end from Iowa, who we just talked about, and I cannot remember his name, he would be a player that if he was available that I would not pass on. J.K. Dobbins is another player if he was available I would not pass on. Tua Tagovailoa. So those would be the 3 players in the first round that I could not pass on if they were there. In terms of what was the other part of your question? And what position would you hold off on considering the depth of the draft? The depth of the draft? I mean, receiver would be one of those. I mean, this draft has great depth at receiver. So I would say receiver, because you could get a really good one later in the draft. You don't have to get one in the first round, but the Dolphins don't need a receiver. So, that I would say receiver. I guess receiver, because I think defensive linemen and offensive linemen, you want to pick at a premium. Like, you want the cream of the crop because of how bad those positions are. This next question comes from Seymour. He says, do you think Jordan Love is the best quarterback prospect for Chan Gailey's spread offense? Listen, I love how we're talking about Chan Gailey as some long-term... I mean, who knows with this organization who the offensive coordinator is going to be next season. So I wouldn't draft a quarterback to tie it to Chan Gailey. That's for dang sure. That would be a huge mistake. I like Jordan Love, though. But I don't think you should tie him to Chan Gailey. This next question comes from Richard. Richard says, Melvin Gordon would be a great pick in free agency. He's a game changer. He would be a great help to Ryan Fitzpatrick or Josh Rosen. I disagree with that. I don't like Melvin Gordon. I think he's super overrated. He's a good versatile back, but he's not someone... Like, J.K. Dobbins, to me, is leagues and bounds better. Jonathan Taylor, for this offense, he's less versatile, but he's better. For just a better option, in my opinion. Bahamas Dolphins asks, why do you... he says, why do you... O'Shea was fired. Why do I think O'Shea was fired? I have no idea. You can... Again, just another boneheaded decision by this organization. I don't know. It's so stupid you can't even rationalize it. It doesn't make any sense. I can't, there's nothing I can say, or there's just nothing, I don't know. It's weird. That is going to be it for this week's episode of the Miami Dolphins podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed some updates in terms of if you're still listening for future content. I do want to do, someone suggested in the comment section that do your all-time, since it's the 100th anniversary, do your all-time Miami Dolphins roster, 53-man roster. I think I'm going to do that. And I know a lot of people probably won't watch that, but look forward to that. And look forward to this series being posted on podcast outlets very soon. I'm trying to figure that out. It's very complicated, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But if you're looking forward to that, let me know down in the comment section below. And I'm Skax83, and I'll see you guys in the next week's episode. Or look out for some other content this week. I might cut some stuff out of the podcast and upload it on the channel, like the free agent segment. I think I'm gonna cut some of that. I'm gonna cut the free agent segment out and upload it as a separate video for you guys on probably Wednesday or Thursday. So look forward to that too. I'm Skax83, and I'll see you guys in the next one.